Let's be real. An OSHA inspection is a pretty stressful, high-stakes event for any employer, but it doesn't have to be a complete catastrophe. If you understand the process, know your rights, and have a solid plan, you can turn that anxiety into a much more manageable situation.
Okay, picture this. That's the moment, right? And it's so important to remember, you are not just a passive observer here. You're an active participant with your own rights and responsibilities. So let's break down exactly what happens from the second that officer arrives all the way to the final resolution.
Here's our game plan. We're going to follow this entire journey step by step. We'll start with why they show up in the first place, then move through the opening conference, the walk-around inspection, the interviews, and all the way to the closing conference, and importantly, what to do if you get a citation.
So, first things first. You might think OSHA just shows up out of the blue, but that's rarely the case. These inspections are almost always triggered by something specific. And understanding these triggers, well, that's the very first step to being prepared.
And if you look at this list, the priority order really tells a story. Imminent danger is number one, of course, but look how high worker complaints are. That makes them a really common trigger. And it's not always about a specific incident either. OSHA has targeted programs for high-hazard industries, which means they could show up proactively, even if you think everything is totally fine.
A fatality is, without a doubt, the most serious trigger, and those reporting deadlines show you just how urgent it is. You have just 8 hours to report a fatality, and only 24 hours for severe injuries, like a hospitalization or an amputation. Missing these deadlines is a violation all on its own, and practically guarantees a full-blown inspection is coming your way. Now, it's also important to know that a complaint doesn't automatically mean an inspector is about to knock on your door. For issues that are lower priority, OSHA might choose what's called a complaint inquiry. Basically, they'll call or email you, describe the alleged hazard, and then ask you to investigate it and report back on what you found and what you did to fix it, usually within 5 working days.
Okay, so the inspector's on site. The very first formal step is the opening conference. And this is not just some casual chat. It's a super critical meeting where the tone and, more importantly, the scope of the entire inspection get established.
The process here is really systematic for a reason. You'll start by verifying their credentials, always do that first. Then you need to pay very close attention as they explain the purpose and scope of the visit. This is your chance to understand if it's a massive, comprehensive inspection or if it's limited to just one specific complaint. This is where you set the ground rules.
After the conference, the physical inspection, what everyone calls the walk-around, begins. This is where the inspector actually observes your workplace in action, and it is absolutely vital to remember that both you and your employees have specific rights during this phase.
This isn't just a good idea, it's baked right into the OSHA Act. It's non-negotiable. As the employer, you have the right to have a representative with the inspector at all times. This person should be taking detailed notes, taking the same photos the inspector takes, essentially mirroring their every move to create your own record of the inspection.
But it's not a one-way street. The rights here are balanced. The worker walk-around rule makes it clear that employees can also pick a representative, and that person isn't limited to just a fellow employee. If the situation involves really complex hazards, they can actually bring in a third-party expert, like a safety engineer, to help the inspector do a more thorough job.
Okay, here's a pro tip that can make a huge difference. If the inspector points out a simple, easily fixable hazard, like a blocked exit or a messy cord, fix it right there on the spot. This shows a commitment to safety and good faith, and that can really influence how OSHA views your company. It could even lead to reduced penalties.
The walk-around isn't the only way OSHA gathers information, not by a long shot. They'll also conduct interviews with employees and request specific safety records. This is the evidence gathering phase, and it has its own set of rules you need to know.
Now listen up, because there is a stark difference between interviewing a supervisor and a non-supervisory employee. A supervisor's statements can legally bind the company. Whatever they know, the company is considered to know. That's why you have the right to have a representative in the room. For non-supervisory employees, though, that interview is private unless they ask for someone to join them.
And when it comes to documents, you have to be ready for some tight deadlines. The inspector will almost certainly ask for your OSHA 300 logs, and you are required to provide them within 4 business hours. This is exactly why having your safety records organized and easy to access before an inspection is so critical.
Now, don't expect this to happen right away. It could be days or even weeks after the site visit that the process moves to the closing conference. This is where the inspector sits down and discusses their findings with you before anything official is issued.
How you act in this meeting is key.
Your best strategy is to listen, not talk. Be a sponge. Take detailed notes on every single apparent violation they describe. This is not the time to argue or to admit fault. And definitely do not promise when you'll fix things. Those are called abatement dates, and you'll set those formally later on. Your only goal here is to gather information.
And if you're wondering why all this matters so much, well, just follow the money. The financial stakes are getting higher and higher. As you can see, in just 5 years, the number of large citation packages, we're talking over 100 grand, jumped by 57%. This trend makes it crystal clear that OSHA is ramping up enforcement, which makes navigating this process correctly more critical than ever.
All right, we're in the home stretch. What happens after you get that official citation in the mail? Well, that kicks off a formal process with its own strict deadlines and some pretty big strategic choices.
If there is one number you burn into your memory from this entire process, make it this one, 15. You have exactly 15 working days from the moment you receive a citation to file a written notice of intent to contest. If you miss this deadline, that citation becomes a final order. Your chance to appeal just vanishes. It's a hard deadline.
This part can get a little tricky because you're basically on 2 separate tracks at the same time. You can, and you probably should, request an informal conference with the OSHA area director to try and negotiate a settlement. But, and this is so critical, that conference does not pause the 15-day clock. You still have to file your formal contest by the deadline to protect your rights, even while you're negotiating.
So the inspection process might have a beginning and an end, but workplace safety, that never stops. Responding to an inspection is all reactive. The real question is, how do you use this experience to build a proactive, ongoing safety culture that prevents the next incident from ever happening in the first place?